United States is marking 21 years since the 9/11 attacks. The September 11th Memorial and Museum will host its annual commemoration ceremony to honor the nearly 3,000 people killed in the 2001 attacks at the World Trade Center site, the Pentagon, and those aboard Flight 93. The commemoration is for family members of the victims, who have once again been invited to participate in this year's reading of the names. Throughout the ceremony, 6 moments of silence will be observed. Now, for more on this, we are joined in studio by Albert Lewitinn. He was actually on the ground as a journalist when the towers came down. You were at Ground Zero. We're both New Yorkers, but a slightly different generation. I was a little too young to remember that day. Can you recount what happened for us?
Sure. I mean, I'll remember distinctly. It was an election day, so I was at the moment I was voting. I remember hearing on the police radio there's crackling of a plane hitting the World Trade Center, and for me it was bizarre. Why would that actually happen? Everybody knows the World Trade Center are the tallest buildings in America, and then you look outside and it was a purely clean sky, not a cloud to be seen. And so when we knew that, we thought, okay, that must have been an accident. When the second one hit, that's when we knew something was different. Something was not right. There was definitely a terrorist incident then. And then it was like, now what do we know? What do we know? How did this happen? And it was just, I remember distinctly, I was a producer at the time. I sent some of my team members down to go find people, talk about it. What happened? Where were you? And it was beyond, I mean, I can't even describe the feeling because it felt very vulnerable. It attacked us. It attacked New York, and from that moment on, the world changed.
And that's actually what I want to talk about. I remember watching on TV as those towers burned. We saw the images of people leaping to their deaths to avoid the flames, and it felt like the entire nation was all at once holding their breath, wanting to see what would happen next. And in the immediate days, then months following, as you mentioned, the world itself changed. Describe the difference. What was the world post 9/11 like compared to what it was before?
Well, I mean, we didn't know anything about extremism. We didn't understand terrorism. We thought like, oh, it happens over there, here actually, in more of the Middle East than it would happen in the United States. Why would it happen here? What do we have? We don't have anything to hold against anybody. Why would that happen to us? So think about that, extremism. Think about security at a point when you were able to go through an airport and without having to, you just did a metal detector, but you didn't have to go take your socks off, your shoes off, any of that. That completely changed. The idea of security, the idea of knowing profiling, the idea of technology, how all of that changed, that happened because of 9/11. 9/11 was a point when things completely shifted in the way that our society functions.
And that brings us to another question, because it's been 21 years and we've seen some massive geopolitical differences in the time since. We saw the U.S. burn trillions of dollars, thousands of lives, prosecuting a war against those responsible for the act. But we just saw that Afghanistan fell to the Taliban just within hours of being abandoned by U.S. forces. We say the world has changed, but has the Middle East changed? Has the nature of extremism and terrorism in the area changed?
It hasn't. I mean, the only difference is that it's the same players, same ideas, same functions. Nothing's really changed. I mean, the only thing that has really changed is that possibly that the people who are now the leaders were younger back then, and now they've risen up. That's really the only difference that's changed. You have the same people believing the same things, and you have the same issues with security that you've had before. So really not that much has changed.
Now, I want to go back to you as a New Yorker now, because it was obviously a very traumatic moment for everyone in New York. Right. In the 20 years since, how have we seen the city itself evolve and change, the mentality, the people? What sort of scars has this trauma left behind?
Well, I mean, aside from the fact that it took years to rebuild the Trade Center site, and now they have one World Trade Center, and people go there to a memorial. As you'll see later today, they'll go and read the names. What it has changed is it has taken us on guard. We've now become a little bit more putting an eye on things. We've seen things change to the point where we take a step back. When we see something, we say something. That's never happened before, and I think that's what New Yorkers have now learned, is that you can't take things for granted. You can't take security for granted. It's something you see here in the Middle East. You never thought you'd see it as a New Yorker, but now you do.
It's definitely a very different world. We only have about a minute left to discuss these issues, but just walk us through whatever your last thoughts, your memories were. What was the part that really sticks with you all these years later about what the world is and was?
I think what this day brought anything is really the shift in thoughts, the shift that, like, hey, this could happen here, which could happen in New York, this could happen in America. That's something that will always, I'll never forget. My boss at the time pulled us all in a room, and she said to us, the world has changed forever. It's more than Pearl Harbor. This has changed forever. And I think that in my head remains.
Okay. And that is going to be what sticks with us as we remember those events. Now, that's just about all the time that we have with us. Thanks for joining us, Albert.